Hello and welcome to the updated version of the EC Method podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Holes and
because Emma's ill.
Distinct lack of sleep.
Yes.
And no caffeine because Chloe just spilled a whole cup of coffee
In Sainsbury's.
over everything in Sainsbury's. That was good.
Yeah, people didn't find the funny side of it either.
No.
It's very uncomfortable. So guys, listen, we are going to be doing this kind of podcast slightly more often in the year 2025. Clients, do not worry, you will still be getting our live Q&A direct to your living room once a week at least. But we thought it's about time that we upgraded the podcast. We think it offers pretty good content and we want that to be reflected in its production. So we're not doing it ourselves anymore. We have a lovely man here doing it for us.
Thank you, lovely man. Okay, so today's episode is going to be all about managing Christmas. We have 9 points to go through that we're going to riff off. And to start with, I will tell you point one, which is this is probably the most basic point, but I don't think many people actually do it, and that is to plan ahead. But
Yeah.
actually plan ahead. I mean, like, write it down. Go into the festive season with intention, and interestingly, this is actually how you will enjoy it more, not less, because you'll be looking forward to those special occasions where you are going to enjoy something rather than just mindlessly overeating because it's December.
Yeah, absolutely. We often talk about this in like a micro sense of knowing what your day-to-day kind of food intake is going to look like, even if that's a bit more spontaneity and frivolity on the weekends, which is very normal and common, but still going into it kind of knowing, like, are you going to have your breakfast, or are you going to skip breakfast and do a brunch, or are you going to do like, what is your actual day-to-day food intake going to look like? We also talk about it more kind of in a slightly bigger sense of your week, which I guess I just kind of touched on there. And then we talk about it like in a long-term sense of, okay, fine, we know that not every day of your life is going to be optimal or perfect, whether it's for performance goals or basic health and fitness goals or fat loss goals, which is what the majority of our clients want. But what do you actually want your life to look like in terms of how often you train, how active you are, what your nutrition and caloric awareness looks like in the big picture? And Christmas is no different. And I think the best way to do it, guys, is to think about what you like, what is pivotal to your family and your friends and your celebrations. Do you go on a big night out with your friends on Christmas Eve? Obviously factor that in. Do you, I mean, obviously most people have a big meal on Christmas Day. Where are the things that you can actually just kind of say, I don't really need that, and keep yourself feeling a little bit more in control, keep yourself feeling physically, in terms of your GI distress, a lot more comfortable, that you could cut? So if you have your big Christmas dinner and then out and you're full and you're stuffed and you're lying on the sofa feeling like a blimp, and then your mum brings around the mince pies, don't just say yes because your mum's bringing around the mince pies and it's Christmas. Just say no, I'm full, I'm happy, I'm comfortable. That's what we call the low-hanging fruit. And as Emma said, if you do this, you feel more in control, you enjoy these indulgences more, and you'll actually feel a hell of a lot better when it gets to, I don't know, the 27th or the 28th and you get back to it.
Yeah, I think the main thing with Christmas, or this time of year generally, because it's not Christmas Day, it's actually not like the 5 social occasions that you actually have with your work night out, your family night out, another social thing, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, whatever. It's never those things. It's what you do outside of that. Yeah. And it's falling into that all or nothing mindset outside of those days. Yeah. So like you just said, even though you're full, you're like, well, it's Christmas. I'll just eat this anyway.
Yeah.
The events themselves, which are the things that you're most worried about missing out on, they're not the things that like put you off track. It's the all or nothing mentality that surrounds that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that aside from the all or nothing mentality, there's also this kind of like now or never mentality. If you feel like you're calorically and nutritionally aware most days of the week, most weeks of the month, most months of the year, and then Christmas rolls around and you think, oh, it's now or never. Don't get me wrong, a couple of days of overindulging isn't going to be the end of the world, but also it's fair to say it's completely unnecessary, and it is actually probably doing a little bit of damage mentally in terms of your relationship with food, your relationship with capability around food and self-control. I also think, like I say about kind of knowing what works for you, I know what works for me, and I do what I call the sandwich approach. So I'm pretty on it. I treat the leader.
People love. So take it away.
Also, because it makes everyone think of a turkey sandwich. Who doesn't love it? With the moist maker. Anyway, no, I think that for me, I really gun it hard in the weeks leading up to Christmas. I make sure that I am trying to be like as optimal as I can be. And then come Christmas Eve, usually in the evening, Christmas Eve would suggest, I kind of go over to my parents' house. They have a spread, and I kind of let myself enjoy, little bits as we go, as the night passes. And then, I have a really good, or hope to have, now I have a daughter, not so much, a really good sleep on Christmas morning. And then obviously, Christmas lunch. Boxing Day, I start to kind of rein it in a little bit, and then the day after Boxing Day, I'm back on it. And we are going to do a New Year podcast as well that will be coming up, subsequently to this one, where we'll touch on all these things. But I would say that I definitely overindulge. I definitely don't overindulge, and I sandwich it really nicely with taking as good a care of my body as I can, because there's no denying it, guys. Like we know there's nothing wrong with having the odd indulgent meal or getting a bit drunk for a couple of days out of the year. That's fine. There's no denying it. Like, it's not the healthiest month of the year, is it?
And what is interesting, and this is such a unpopular topic to talk about, because most of health and fitness at this time of year is like, don't worry about it, it's Christmas, like, let your hair down kind of thing. But the issue is, and I agree with that, like, don't worry about it, it's Christmas, read the sandwich approach.
Yeah.
But when you think it's Christmas from, honestly, like November for a lot of people, then it does have a big impact. And the research shows this as well. Like, the vast majority of people put on weight from November until February. That's the bracket of time where people are putting on weight. Actually, the rest of the year, people don't put on so much weight, but they never lose that weight.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. So when people are like, oh, don't worry about Christmas and stuff, I'm like, what the research would suggest is really only worry about that time of year.
Yeah.
Obviously, other things come into that. It's darker nights. People are generally less active. When you're sitting in alone, and well, we're not alone, but like when you're sitting, that's just me.
And me. Spinsters.
When you're sitting alone at night, or when you're sitting inside, it's like the thing to do is eat, right? Like,
people are going to be like, no wonder you're sitting in alone. Listen how depressing you guys are. It's Christmas. Eat the fucking mince pie.
I know, leave it alone. But basically, darker nights, darker mornings, harder to get steps in, less active. It's cold. It's harder to be motivated when it's cold. You want to overeat.
Evolutionarily, we're not meant to be super active right now. Yeah, we're meant to be pretty sedentary at this time of year. So it is pretty normal and unavoidable that evolutionarily we all gain weight, we all feel a bit miserable with the fact that we have to keep going, keep going to work, keep going to the gym. When actually we're not really programmed like that at this time of year. So it is inevitable, and there is something to accept in that. But what we do find is that people will start the new year, or even, even be wading their way through December feeling pretty crap about themselves because they have lost all of that kind of self-belief, self-control. And actually you can still indulge some of the week, but you don't have to do it all of the week. And full circle back to your first point, you'll feel a lot better when you're in control of when you do and don't do it, as opposed to feeling like it's an onslaught and you don't have a choice.
Agree. On to the second point. We've actually covered many points in that first point. Anyway, second point, and this is more of a practical thing. I spoke a little bit about how it's not the indulgence itself, but it's everything around that. So really think about your diet around those indulgences, and I'd probably be tidying that up a little bit. So if you normally have like a few treats and things during the day, or you're snacking a little bit, but you know that you have more social events, I'd be cutting out those kind of things so that you can enjoy yourself more at the social events and still keep that calorie balance. Really focus on high protein, high volume foods outside of those more indulgent meals where probably you don't have as much choice. You probably can't track them, even if you you probably don't want to, but even if you did want to, it's not going to be accurate. So I'd be really focusing on like lean, high protein, high volume. That also means that you're not going to get to those meals that will be more calorie dense starving, and then you end up overeating.
Such a good point. And we talk about this all the time. Instead of looking at it like, wow, I've got a really indulgent, tasting menu, or in this case, event, party, whatever, coming up. So what I'll do is I'll just lower my calories for the day by not eating beforehand. Congratulations, you've probably just doubled your calories by the end of the day because you're going in starving. And you don't. When we're hungry, it's like when you go shopping and you haven't eaten and you just get everything off the shelves and munch a packet of biscuits on your way around. Don't do that. Like, make sure you eat. And as Emma's saying, you can still have really filling, voluminous, big, lovely meals that are really low calorie, focused on lean protein and veg, and then you'll go into this event and you'll probably eat like half of what you would have otherwise, and you're going to save yourself a lot less calories, or a lot more calories, because it is so calorie dense, that food. It's a really big it's a really rookie error going into something calorific starving.
Agree. And then one thing that you were talking about is like, how do you want to feel on the 28th, 29th, like once kind of Christmas is over? When you're planning, I would be thinking about that now. And I don't mean that necessarily as like, I want to feel like I've still hit my fat loss goals, right? I mean it from both ends of the spectrum. You also don't want to be like, I sat upstairs after dinner because I was worried that I'd overeat, and so I didn't sit with my family, right? Like, you don't want to go to like those extremes. So you kind of need to consider that before. Okay, I don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
But also I can have a great time without overeating.
Yeah.
And this year I'm going to prove that to myself. But rather than just thinking about how you need to feel, like, okay, how do you want to feel? What do you need to do to get there?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? And when you're planning out your December, or from now until kind of Christmas or New Year, what does that look like?
Yeah, and we come back around to planning, like you say. You know, if you know that on Sunday you've got kind of a pre-Christmas family lunch, and on Friday you've got your party, fine. That's it. That's your Friday, fun time. It's your Sunday, fun time. But Monday through Thursday and Saturday, it's go time. You go to the gym. You make sure that if you don't go to the gym, fair enough, go for a walk, do something, be active. And actually, like, you are calorically aware, you're nutritionally aware. And then, like I say, whatever, like, let it happen. Where we see clients fall into a pretty miserable cycle is when, like I say, they feel victim of it. They feel like they've lost control. They have no control. But then somebody brought this into the office. But then my mum's such a feeder. It's like, you're in control the whole time, and you get to choose when you throw caution to the wind and you enjoy this time of year, and you get to choose when you don't. And I think for people who don't have issues around food or don't have issues around their body image, they might hear this and be like, God, these two Grinches, the Scrooge one and Grinch two, like, what the fuck? But actually, the majority of our client base have struggled their whole life to have control around food. So this time of year is really, really hard for them. And they've struggled their whole life to get back on track after events like this. As we say, like, a lot of people will gain weight at this time of year, not necessarily lose it. And so we're trying to kind of bolster them with a bit of self-belief, self-confidence, a reminder that the control is theirs all along. And that doesn't mean, as Emma said, you have to have a starvation mindset of I can't eat anything, and nor does it mean you have to have a victim mindset of I don't have a choice. So we're really just trying to drive that message home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. It's like, it's your choice. It's how you want to feel. It's how you want to live your life. It's up to you to make that choice.
Yeah.
But most people will put on weight at this time of year. And I think one really good thing to talk about is like that if you behave like most people, you will get the outcomes that most people have. So if you don't want that outcome, you will have to accept that when people are eating 3 mince pies, you can only have one. Yeah. Or when people are drinking every night for 4 nights, you might just want to choose 1 or 2 of those. And you will stand out a little bit. Yeah. And if you don't want to put on weight, if you don't want to be average, then that's part of what comes with that.
Yeah. And there's also the element of, we talk about, accepting self-control and just acceptance of, like, if you do gain weight, like, I gained quite a lot of weight at the end of summer, and I knew it was happening, and I really enjoyed myself, so I carried on. And I was like, and I know, because I know myself, and this is where, I suppose I'm kind of lucky in this sense. I'm like, I know that the point will come at some point in this. It's also what we do for a living. I kind of don't have a choice. Like, I'm going to have to sort it out. But it's the same for anyone else. If you're like, yeah, guys, I know it's okay. I love it. Like, this is my time of year. Fine. But then also have a plan of, like, that if it gets to April, May, and the sun's starting to come out and we're starting to shed the layers, you're probably going to be like, I don't actually feel that comfortable in my own skin. Now the weather's changing. And now I'm going to want to work. Just, again, go into it with a plan. And like I say, to repeat myself, we are going to do a New Year podcast. We are going to talk about this. We do have great, huge coaching success with one specific methodology of coaching that we use in January, which we would never use the rest of the year round, but it works wonders. And you do have to have a plan. If you're fine with gaining, fine. If you really don't want to gain, another, 5 kg this Christmas, you don't have to. But no matter what you choose, we need to go in with a plan.
Mm-hmm. And one thing from a psychological perspective that I really like about that kind of sandwich approach is that you've picked kind of times that you're going to be no stress. Not, I'm going to eat everything and completely overindulge, but just like, no stress, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to eat what I want. I'm not going to overeat. I'm going to eat mindfully. And then come that day, whether it's Boxing Day or it's the next day, that's when I'm refocused. That's when I'm getting back on track, and that's the part that people miss.
That's the kicker. And that's why January gets such a bad rap. And I don't want to tread too much on the toes of that next podcast, but gets such a bad rap. But it's like, if you don't do that, you're on a spiral, you're on a hiding to nothing, and you're going to be miserable in a month's time. There does come a point where, and this is like everything in life, nobody wants to get up and go to work, you know, the week after Christmas or New Year. Like everyone's, you know, on a 5-day hangover, like got really bad GI distress from all the food that they've, you know, hammered in. And nobody wants to get up and go to work, but you get up and go to work because you need the money to fund the life for your rest of the year. And the same works with your body. You have to actually be really fucking strict with yourself. You have to parent yourself. You have to be a grown up. Pull up your big girl pants or big boy pants. I don't know why that made me laugh. And and say this is it now. Like, it's go time. And this, I think this, you know, again, I don't want to tread too much on the next podcast toast, but this whole kind of thinly veiled feminist zeitgeist of social media, if that makes you a bad person. No, it doesn't. It makes you someone who wants to take care of your body, who wants to get back to work, whether that's, you know, in terms of your health, in terms of your finances, or in terms of your sobriety, and it's fucking fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing with social media. It's like, we're not telling you to do anything. Do what the hell you want. Yeah. But if you're someone who's like, no, I want results, I want to get results. Wow.
I miss Paulie. Tis the season. But also, this is the thing, you know, don't forget the bracket of people that we coach, that we talk to. Like I say, you know, a lot of our clients really struggle with this time of year, and they're kind of scared of it in a way. They feel overwhelmed by it. They feel sucked in by it. And we're just here to be like, yo, like, you've got choices. You've got choices. You can have 2 mince pies if you want. You can have no mince pies if you want. You could do a little workout on Christmas Day if you want. You could sleep. You could basically be on your ass on the sofa or in bed for 3 days solid. It's your choice. You're in control.
That's the end.
So that's the end of our short, sharp, sweet Christmas podcast. We just want you guys, we want you to have a great time. We want you to eat, drink, and be merry. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling intimidated, if you're feeling anxious, you don't need to be. Go in with a plan. Where are your indulgences? Why are those your indulgences? Where's the low-hanging fruit that you can snip it? You don't need it. And just remember that you're in control at all times. Relax and enjoy it. January's coming. We've got a podcast to get you back at your best then.